Hi guys, Grand J here, and welcome to another one of our Opus 4 set reviews. Today we'll be talking about the win cards. So let's get started. First card of the set is Ahriman. So it's a 2-cost monster, and it's got 2 abilities. So it's got Wind, put Ahriman into Break Zone, choose one monster of 5 or more, break it, and Wind, put Ahriman into Break Zone, choose one forward of cost 5 or more, break it. So at this stage, we don't really have any monsters that cost 5 or more, so the first ability is just kind of like, it's like irrelevant at all. Its second ability is Wind, put Ahriman into Break Zone, choose one forward or 5 or more, break it. This is basically like the Alexander that we've had in the past. It basically allows you to do it for a little bit cheaper, so overall costs you only 3 CP in order to do it. And yeah, the fact that you can break it up over a couple of turns, so you can put the Ahriman down, and then whenever you need to, just pay 1 win to do it, is pretty handy. But that being said though, Alexander is an EX burst, so there is a degree of flexibility to that card, and it hasn't really seen a lot of play in the past. Yeah, even though we did see a meta where there were quite a lot of 5 CP forwards in a lot of decks, this Alexander didn't really see much play, and I don't think Ahriman will see play for very similar reasons, simply because it hits a very, very specific small part of the metagame, and it doesn't really sort of help you out in most of the time. Also, like one of Ahriman's abilities to break monsters of 5 or more, there doesn't seem to be any monsters that cost 5 or more at this stage, so it doesn't really help out in regards to that. So Ahriman won't really see any play. Alexander's got support, so if anything, we're going to see a lot more Alexander support, which puts Ahriman out of like the metagame whatsoever. Next card, we have Shara Sena. So when Shara Sena enters the field, search your deck for a Cunning Sena or a Sena and add it to your hand. So basically these 3 cards form a trio this set, and Raya Sena is another backup as well, and both of them basically support Cunning Sena. So Cunning Sena is a forward that's 5 cost 7k, and it gets some bonuses while Rune Sena and Raya Sena are both on the field. So these 3 cards are going to combo in with each other, and they're going to be form another sort of casual deck. So it's kind of, I feel that the power of these cards are going to be around like where Sphere Hunters were in Opus 2. They're going to be a fun trio of cards. They probably won't see competitive play, although this trio may actually see some very minor competitive play in some sort of wind water deck or wind other type of deck, or even mono wind deck, because these cards aren't actually too terrible, and Cunning Sena is pretty good. We'll get to her a little bit later. But at this stage, yeah, I'm not too convinced. I am a little bit disappointed this card isn't an EX burst. So typically when you have a backup that searches for like only 1 or 2 cards, that searcher is generally an EX burst, and I'm a little bit disappointed that this card isn't EX burst. Or like the fact that it costs 4 is also a little bit annoying. So it should have been either cost 3 or it should have been cost 4 EX burst, and the fact that it doesn't have that just bumps it down slightly, but probably not to the point where this card isn't unplayable. Next, we have the first Alexander of the set. It's a 5 cost summon, EX burst, choose one forward of power 9,000 or more, break it. So this card is very, very similar in what it does compared to Alexander, but instead of being limited to a character of cost 5 or more, it's limited to a forward of 9,000 power or more. So there's a couple of ways to gimmick around with this. So one is if your opponent does have those backups that give their forwards additional power, Alexander can also hit other targets as well. It is EX burst, which is pretty good. 9,000 power or more is kind of generally your opponent's big forward, so unless your opponent's got some sort of buffs on the field, you're not going to be hitting 9,000 powers too often. Also the fact that this costs 5 is a little bit pricey. If it costs 4, then I think that this card would actually be viable, but costing 5 is a little bit pricey, so a lot of the time you're going to be really relying on its EX burst in order to do something. That being said though, it's in the same position that Alexander was in the past, and that it's not consistent enough and doesn't hit enough things as often as you would like for it to see more than say 1 or 2 copies in the deck. And yeah, outside of this card by itself isn't fantastic, but considering how we have Hope in this set, Hope might become an engine. Because it's a very resource light engine, so potentially we might see some gimmicky play in a casual deck. And this is what's great about this game, is that definitely cards that aren't super strong can also be very viable tier 1.5, tier 2 decks that are going to be really fun and have a lot of fun mechanics to them, and I think that it's going to fit nicely into that. Next card, and this card is actually probably the best Alexander we have so far, is a 2-cost summon, EX burst, choose one monster, break it, or choose one backup you control, activate it, draw one card. So this card is like going to see play simply because if you want to be able to break monsters, this can break any monsters your opponents have. And worst case scenario, if you don't have anything to do with it, you can always cycle it. So it costs you 2 CP and then reactivate one backup. So it effectively allows you to it allows you to cycle through this card for only 1 CP. So it's never really going to be a dead card in your hand. And the fact that it's an EX burst, which means that if the opponent doesn't have any monsters when you EX burst it, at the very least it draws you a card, which is pretty good. So this card is going to see quite a lot of play in win decks. Like maybe 1 or 2 copies, unless like Hope is being played in the deck where it probably jumps up to 3 copies. That being said, this card doesn't really do anything outside of monsters. So this card is, yeah, it's really difficult to place this card. So definitely if monsters become more prevalent, then this card will definitely see a lot more play because it's a pretty good answer to monster cards. Next card is Ezell. So it's a 2-cost 5,000 power forward. When your opponent casts a summon, activate all forwards you control. This card I am not particularly convinced on. The body isn't particularly good, and its effect, it's like kind of what it's a reactive effect, but it doesn't really sort of it doesn't really help you out in a lot of situations. So yeah, your opponent plays summon. Generally, when your opponent's playing a summon, it's either to remove one of your guys or to like dull or freeze one of your guys, right? But Ezell's ability, because it gets added onto the stack, if your opponent uses some sort of dull ability, then your guys reactivate first, and then like the summon resolves and it would dull them anyway. So in that regard, Ezell is only really kind of like useful when you have multiple guys, and like the cost of your opponent using summon is to reactivate all your other guys. So in that regard, Ezell is a very niche ability to have, and because most decks are only running like somewhere along the lines of like 8 to 11 summons, you're not going to be hitting too many summons too often. And so yeah, this doesn't disincentivize your opponent from using summons too much. Yeah, it doesn't really disincentivize your opponent from using summons all that much. So that's going to be a little bit. So this card probably won't see play because of that. Next, we have Onion Knight. So the first legendary of Win for this set, it's a 4-cost 7k, so it's a little bit below curve, but when Onion Knight enters the field or attacks, choose one forward, deal it 3,000 damage. When Onion Knight enters the field, choose one card named Onion Knight of any element except for Wind from your break zone and add it to your hand. Also, it's got a third ability, S, for just S, place Onion Knight at the bottom of your deck. If you do so, search for one card named Onion Knight with job Sage and play it onto the field. So this combos with pretty much the only like Lightning Onion Knight that we got so far, which is Onion Knight. Onion Knight that's been used with an Acid combo. So basically allows you to attack with Onion Knight, deal 3k to something, and then job change into the Sage and be able to finish off by dealing another 6k to it. At the same time, if you've got any other sort of ping effects, you've always got the ability to just S it onto the field and switch it into the Onion Knight. Also, this card doesn't really say you have to do it on your turn. So even on your opponent's turn, if you do ping them for any sort of damage, you can always switch this Onion Knight out for the other Onion Knight. A, to dodge abilities, and B, just to deal like damage as well. So this card is like very much like a ninja in that it can like, it dodges resources, it deals ping damage, and it can also switch things up. So this card's definitely going to see, seems like a very fun card to play. Probably if it does see play, it'll be some sort of like Wind Lightning hybrid where you ran Acid, so you got secondary use for Onion Knight as well. That being said, this card's a pretty fun card. I do think it will see play. Maybe not in the highest like tiers of play, because Wind's already kind of got its archetype of playing big guys and reactivating stuff, and I don't think Onion Knight really sort of fits into that particularly well. But this card is definitely going to be fun in a more sort of Lightning Wind build, where you run like stuff like Balthiers, Vasoyas, and lots of ping damage, and using archers to break from your moves and that sort of stuff. So this card will see play, but I don't think it will be like top tier competitive. It will be like very viable for like tier 1.5, tier 1. Next, we have Cunning Sena. So if you control a card named Raya Sena, Cunning Sena gets plus 2,000 power. When Cunning Sena enters the field, if you control a name called Rune Sena, activate all backups you control. So Raya Sena is the other backup below. So Raya Sena makes Cunning Sena unchoosable by abilities, and the other one is the Searcher for him. So these 3 cards form a trio of cards, and it basically makes, when you have all 3 guys on the field, Cunning Sena becomes a 9,000 power forward that cannot be chosen by opponent's abilities, and when it enters play, it reactivates all your backups. So it's basically a more conditional Bart without an EX burst, but it does have the benefit of that it cannot be chosen by opponent's abilities. so that's pretty good when it, by itself as well. Being unable to be chosen by abilities is actually really strong. Just because there's so many good forwards, so many good abilities, being able to dodge them is really good, making it like unchoosable by stuff like Ahriman, unchoosable by stuff like Acid Onion Knight is really good. So potentially we might be seeing like a more mono win deck where we're just spamming out these huge 9Ks and reactivating backups. Potentially we might see this in a deck where we have Bards, we have Cunning Sena, and we have like maybe Pain as well. So potentially in one turn for 5 backups, you can just put Bards in play, put this chick in play, put Pain in play, all for free without discarding any cards. And so it's like a very Zergy sort of deck. And I think that would be really cool. So I think that this card is a pretty cool card. If you can sort of have the backup space open available for her, then you're going to see like a win deck that's very like high range guy Zergy. Next card is Archer. So it's a 2 CP backup. When Archer enters the field, deal 1000 damage to all your opponent's forwards, and for win, dull, break Archer, deal 2000 damage to all forwards in opponent's control. So this card is very similar to what Geomancer did from Opus 3. Geomancer saw absolutely no play whatsoever because dealing 2000 damage to your opponent's guys on entering or entry for a backup isn't particularly good. And Archer, it steps up a little bit better than that. So one is that it does deal 1k as soon as it comes into play without really much investment. So it means if your guys were just like 1k short of finishing guys, then Archer can do that. Archer can also hit like, I suppose, any random 1ks that's sitting on the field, although your opponent probably isn't playing any 1k forwards like 99% of the time. But it does have the bonus of like you can win, dull, break it to deal 2000 damage to all your opponent's forwards, which is great because if you're playing wind or or even wind water, say you have a lot of guys that are around the 7k mark, and they're going to have trouble dealing with like your opponent's 9ks and 10ks. So if your opponent's attacking with the 8ks and the 9ks, and you can just block with your 7ks, you can then use Archer to finish them off. Especially if you like. Because most of your free cost 7k forwards are pretty cheap, you can put like say 2 of them into play, and if your opponent's attacking with like an 8 and attacking with a 9, then you can just block, you lose both your guys, but then you can use Archer to finish your opponent's guys off, and you do get us like an overall like net resource advantage. Also this does have some nice interesting combos with like stuff like Barbarisha. It has interesting combos with those sort of AoE type abilities as well. So this card is like not going to see like mainstream play in a lot of win decks, but we'll see like used in sort of more like more combo orientated win decks. Next we have Kobold Droid Yin, and I think this I do not understand this card image. Like I understand Poo Poo, but I do not understand this. I do not know what the hell I'm looking at. It looks like some like weird like messed up salt shaker to me. So yeah, so it's a 1-cost monster. Pay 1 wind until the end of the turn. This guy also becomes a forward with 3000 power and cannot be blocked by forwards that cost 3 or more. You can only use this ability once per turn. So this basically, for 1 win, you can turn this card into a Yuffie, and this Yuffie has not really seen play because being a 3k forward, it gets wiped out pretty easily. It does have the benefit of it being a monster, so it is searchable. It's like it's resurrectable by a lot of stuff, and when you don't want it as a forward, it stays as a monster, so your opponent can't really use forwards with ping effects such as like Rigdia and that sort of stuff to just like kill it on your opponent's turn as well. So this card only generally becomes a forward when you need to become a forward, like when you're declaring attack. That being said, I'm not sure that this is good enough to push it into play. Although it does have the benefit of that, like if you do make it a forward, you can then use like one of your other cards like Kefka or Realm to make it like a 7000 power forward that can't be blocked by 3 or more. And then that becomes alright, but then you're kind of like really investing a lot into just making one guy like be able to attack through. So I think that this card is like investing in this card is not going to give you a good return, and this card by itself is not good enough by itself. So this card like it's kind of got like probably won't see too much play simply because of that. Next card is Cactus. So it's a 1-cost monster, dull, choose 1 forward, deal at 1k damage. And it's also got green, 2, dull, put Cacti into break zone, choose 1 forward, deal at 10,000 damage. Cacti deals you 1 point of damage. EX birds of cards put into damage zone from this ability cannot be used. So a couple of things to break down is like when you use the secondary ability to like deal 10k, if the forward that you're dealing it to is no longer on the field on resolution, then you don't deal yourself any damage. So you definitely do put Cacti in the bin and you do pay your CP cost. But if the monster that you're trying to the forward that you're trying to hit isn't there, then you don't take the damage. And yeah, it does kind of suck that you don't get any EX bursts off of this ability because there's like not many abilities that like sort of deal you damage as a cost or like use your life as a resource. And I really wish that there were more, just so we have like more interesting combinations or combo decks that we can sort of pull off. It wasn't really overpowered to the point where where it would have to have that drawback. So I'm a little bit annoyed that it does cancel out EX burst on your cards, which kind of sucks. But its first ability is actually not bad. I found that just being able to dull it to deal a forward 1k damage actually pretty good. So it allows all your sort of mid-range forwards to be able to trade up, and it's just always sort of sitting there. It definitely has like uses in other colors as well, where if you just want to deal 1000 ping damage, it allows you to like use stuff like Onion Knight or other sort of type abilities to sort of push damage up to where it should be lethal. And yeah, it just kind of sits there pinging for 1k, and then like if you ever need it to like deal 10k to something, it's always relevant there. So yeah. It's a pretty decent card. It's a pretty decent card, but then again, Wind still has issues with the Emperor, and Emperor is going to see a lot more play because monsters are a thing. So I think that that's going to be the reason why we don't see as much Cactus as we possibly would like. Next card is Fief. It's a 1-cost standard unit 4 with 3000 power, which is pretty standard. When Fief leaves the field, your opponent puts the top card of their deck into the break zone. So so it's basically just like another card for the mill strategy. This card does have the benefit of, yes, it does cost 1, so it's significantly cheaper to put in, and like the mill ramp deck, once you get these cheap guys into like mill your opponent, it does combos well with the Wind Earth mill deck, where you can just like put Kefka on it, make it 8000 so it can block stuff. At the same time, the Wind mill deck usually plays free legendary Valor, so you can get this guy in for really, really cheap. And then you can just Valor Forward them and then return from your hand. Whenever it leaves the field, your opponent mills a card. So even if you do Valor Forward, you do mill 1 card from your opponent's deck. It costs 1, so it's very efficient. So if you do get to 5 backups, so it is very possible for you to play 2 of these Thieves, then play 1 Bartz. Play 1 Bartz by discarding a card, reactivate all your backups, and then you got Valor Forward ready on defense as well. So this card is actually like a decent addition to the mill deck. It's just kind of like a body, but outside of like specifically mill, this card will see no play whatsoever. Next card is Shara, and this card is like pretty nuts. So Shara is a 1-cost forward at 3000 power. EX burst. When Shara enters the field, choose 1 forward and opponent controls, deal it 3000 damage. If you control a card named Ritz, deal it 6000 damage instead. So for like, if you just treat it as a 1-cost summon for 3k, that's not terrible. As a EX burst, it's pretty irrelevant. But if you control Ritz, one CP for 6k is actually really, really strong. And it's an EX burst as well. So there will be times where you just have Ritz on the field, your opponent hits you, you EX burst a Shara for 6k, and that's like pretty good, pretty nuts. This card is going to combo combos really well into like either fire type scenario or like wind type scenario. So Wind does have Ashura, which allows you as a summon to return a character of 2 or less from your discard pile back to your hand. So it does allow you to recur these Shara. So if your Ritz is safe, you can just play Shara for 6k damage. And because Wind has so many other ping effects, you're generally going to be able to convert that 6k damage into like to be able to kill like an 8k forward or a 9k forward pretty easily most of the time. Not only that, if you have like Ritz on the field, then you can potentially use Phoenix. So Phoenix deals 2000 damage to all your opponent's forwards. You bring out a Shara, deals another 6k, you just kill your opponent's 8k, and you put a body on the board. So this card is like a very fun combo card, and I'm very interested in sort of experimenting more around with it. By itself, it's not fantastic, but the fact that while you have Ritz on the field, it doubles like the damage it deals is like pretty nuts. Next card is White Mage. So White Mage is a 2-cost, is yet another 2-cost backup for $1. Put White Mage into a break zone, choose 1 forward, activate it. It gains plus 1000 power until the end of the turn. So I basically treated this as basically you can use this card to like use Sylph. So you can reactivate a forward and you can give it plus 1000 power. Of course, it doesn't have the benefit of giving all you guys plus 1000 power, and it's not an EX burst. But it is also a colorless cost. So if you're playing like Wind something else, then you don't have to specifically keep another Wind backup active in order to do it. And being able to just reactivate your guy and give it plus 1000 power is like gives you so much utility in terms of like, yeah, you can use it for defense, you can use it for when your opponent's trying to dull you guys, or you can use it just as a combat pump as well. So this card's pretty flexible, and it gives Wind some pretty good 2-cost backups now to put into play when it doesn't want to say run triple archers. Next, we have Chocobo. So it's a free cost 6,000 power, so it's a little bit below the curve, but when Chocobo forms a party and attacks, Chocobo and all forwards forming a party will gain plus 3,000 power until the end of the turn. So this is actually pretty good. This is comparable to the free cost Chocobo that we got in Opus 1, which had 4,000 power, had the same effect, but also has haste. So you're trading off 2,000 extra power for haste instead. Now, what does this kind of sort of really mean? If this Chocobo is party attacking with anything, it puts itself up to 9,000 power. So in general, that's going to make it like pretty much unkillable for most, mid-range forwards. So that's pretty good, but you are sort of like using it as a party attack. So the question really becomes like, what are you sort of party attacking this Chocobo with? And that's got to be a big question. It is a standard unit, so that's pretty handy as well. And you do have stuff like Izana to search for it as well. So so definitely Chocobos can now become like this viable tier 2 like fun strategy. And I'm definitely like interested in sort of like playing around with it and tinkering with it. I'm just like not sure where it all sits right at this stage at the moment. Next card, we've got the special artwork Chocobo. So when Chocobo enters the field, choose one forward other than Chocobo. It gains haste until the end of the turn. It's a free cost 6,000, so it's a little bit below the curve, but it gives a guy haste, which is not too terrible. It doesn't have the standard like party attack type mechanics, but it basically gives you, when it gives you guys a haste, it gives you guys haste. This is a little bit overpriced when you consider that like other colors such as like lightning and fire can also give haste, and this card you're paying free to give a guy a haste, and you're kind of left with a 6k body. So in terms of cost wise, it's actually like you're fine because you're paying basically 2 CP for 6k forward, and then you're using the 1 extra CP to basically give a guy a haste. But generally, when you want to give a guy haste, you've already committed a lot of resources into playing a guy, and that's why you want to give him haste. So you generally have already spent like 4 CP to put in like a 4k, and you want to give that guy haste. You have to spend another 3 CP to put this guy to haste him out as well. And that's the kind of biggest problem, is that you have to pay for both a 6k body and a haste in order to haste a guy. And I think that's the biggest limitation on this card. There is definitely synergy with him being a standard unit and him being like a Chocobo that allows him to be search of Izana. Potentially we might see this being sort of like a toolbox card with Izana. So you just like, if you're wind and you need haste, you play Izana, you search this Chocobo, put it down, you haste the guy, and you're good. But that being said though, not super convinced at this stage, although the stats aren't bad, so definitely you could probably play it in some sort of wind like standard unit gimmick deck and you'd probably be fine. Next card is Fat Chocobo. It is a 5 cost backup and it's the second legendary of this set for wind. When Fat Chocobo enters the field, search for 1 job Chocobo or 1 card name Chocobo of cost 3 or less and play it onto the field. For tap, choose 1 job Chocobo or card name Chocobo. It gains plus 2,000 power until the end of the turn. And this is really what's going to be pushing the like gimmick Chocobo deck, because like all of your Chocobos that were just 1k below the curve now have the possibility of getting plus 2,000 power due to Fat Chocobo, and you can search for them as well. So this card is like deceptively, how's the best way to put it? This card actually allows the Chocobo archetype to work. If this card didn't exist, then like, yeah, Chocobos would be significantly more behind, but now the fact that we got this Chocobo and we can play something like Arc to give all you guys give all your Chocobos plus 1,000 power, it's going to be a pretty fun gimmicky deck to play with. It might actually push like tier 1.5 as well. The annoying thing is that this card is unique, so you can't have multiple Fat Chocobos on the field at the same time. But yeah, if you could, that'd be pretty busted. But yeah, so yeah, you can search for like any free cost Chocobo, and it's sort of like a cool sort of toolbox type effect from it. So you can get like the free cost Chocobo that gives a guy haste, or free cost Chocobo that has haste, or free cost Chocobo that's just like generally a little bit bigger. And yeah, you can sort of figure it out from there. So in that regard, Fat Chocobo, even though it costs 5 as a backup, you are getting your value. So you are getting basically a two cost backup, and you're getting a free cost Chocobo forward out at the same time, and you've got a very good like ongoing ability to give you guys plus 2,000 power at any time with Fat Chocobo. So yeah, this card is pretty good. I'm going to be interested to see how people want to build their Chocobo decks and see how good it's going to be compared to the rest of the meta. I actually think it's not going to be too bad. I think it's going to sit around tier 1.5. Next card is Doned. So it's a FFTA card, 2 costs, 5,000 power, dull, choose 1 monster, dull, or activate it. So Wind's already got kind of like, so this card can be used in 2 ways. So one, it can be used to reactivate your own monsters, or it can be used to dull your opponent's monsters. So there's kind of like a couple of handy things about it. So if your opponent wants to use their own monsters like for attacking, so stuff like Malboro, stuff like Banger Fief, and stuff like Swamp Monk, Doned can dull them whenever your opponent tries to convert them into a forward. So your opponent pays to try to put them make them forward. You use Doned, dull them, and then like their effects become irrelevant. Or you can use it to reactivate your own backup, reactivate your own monsters. The problem is that there's not too many monsters that have like sort of dull abilities. And so, like, probably Ghoul is probably, like, one of your best choices. So you Ghoul, like, you can then don it and then, like, Ghoul again to, like, dull another guy. And that being said, though, you can, like, most monsters are not unique, so you can just have multiple monsters. And sort of, like, I'd rather have more Ghouls on the field rather than, like, a Ghoul and a Doned. And so Doned, his size doesn't, like, really help him, and his effect isn't too relevant, and he's in Wind, so Wind is able to play Alexander. So if you really want to deal with your opponent's monsters, Alexander's always there to do it for you. So this card is kind of outclassed in like every part of its effect, so this card won't really see play because of that. Next card, and this is one of my favorite cards for the new set, and this backup is absolutely crazy. No. So I put him down in sealed, and I realized how bullshit this card was straight away. Free cost backup. Whenever a forward you control attacks, choose one backup you control, activate it. So basically, you get 1 free CP every time you attack, as long as you like sort of spend some CP like before combat. And so this is pretty crazy. You can like just have like 1 or 2 guys on the field, just put No down, and then attack with those guys, and No virtually pays for himself already immediately. Now this combo is so just like if you just have dudes and No, he's just giving you a whole lot of extra resources to work with every single turn, and that's pretty amazing. In addition to this, he has some cool combos where you can just reactivate certain backups again and again. So Kefka was one of them, so like Heroic Kefka from set 1, but probably the most relevant one is Zemus. I played this card in like one of the first sealed events, and I just thought, oh crap, this card is going to be busted with Zemus. Imagine having like Zemus on the field, you Zemus one of your guys, they attack, and then reactivate Zemus. So you attack again, reactivate Zemus, you use Zemus again. Basically, No and Zemus basically make it so all your forwards can never be blocked ever. So that's pretty nuts. I'm like also trying to theory craft for what other cards would be great combination with No, but right now No and Zemus just seems like a pretty crazy deck, and I'm going to sort of like be interested in sort of building this deck out and see like what sort of crazy shenanigans we can pull off this 2-card combo. Next card is Geomancer. When Geomancer enters the field, choose one Wind character other than Geomancer you control, activate it. Like, Wind has got so many cards of this nature, and they almost never see play. Simply because, like, Wind doesn't have a lot of cards that can sort of capitalize on being reactivated. So yeah, reactivating Wind cards isn't that great, because you'd rather reactivate, like, Ice cards or Lightning cards that are doing stuff. Even though it does cost 2, and it's basically kind of like a freebie effect, it's not particularly good, and there are other pretty good Wind backups, and like the 2-cost Wind backups in this set are actually really, really good. So yeah, this we've already got pretty good like 2-cost Wind backups. This set adds in a lot more, so Geomancer is just not going to see play. There's no reason to play it. Next card is Hope. So it's a 4-cost 5,000 power forward, so it's significantly below curve, and it's got EX burst. When Hope enters the field, you may search your deck for one card named Alexander, add it to your hand. It's got dull, choose one forward, activate it. So, a couple of things to note. So yeah, definitely, like, the fact that you do get a card means you should really treat it as like a 2 CP 5k forward. That is a little bit annoying because 5k is never where you want to be. 6k is really where you want to be at the 2 CP forward. Just because there are so many 2 CP forwards now that are around the 6k or buff up to like 7k, that 5k is a very irrelevant number. It's not going to be able to win fights, and like a lot of nukes now just like by default shoot for 5 or more. So yeah, Hope will die pretty easily. The fact that he does searching for an Alexander is pretty cool. Like a lot of times you'll be searching for the 2-cost Alexander just like to kill a monster or to cycle through. But it sort of seems like it's just like this whole Hope Alexander thing is like garbage searching for other garbage. None of those guys are good on their own. And they're just like searching you for more garbage. So it just gives you a whole bunch of resources. And you don't really know what to do with them because they don't push you towards any sort of win conditions. And like now we've got like a whole like much crazier like Hope Alexander like suite of cards you can play. So you can play Hope both from like this set and the previous set. We can have like 3 Alexanders, and we could play whatever that free cost backup was. I forgot that searches for Hope, and they're all EX bursts. So like you can play this like crazy like super EX burst win deck, and you're just getting a whole bunch of resources, but like you're getting all this stuff, but what are you doing with them? Like, Hope isn't going to win you the game. Yes, he searches you with Alexander. Alexander doesn't win you the game, though. So it's kind of like trash searching for trash. You don't know what to do with it. The best use that we found with this Hope is to basically consider him a 4-cost forward that you use the leader to break an opponent's 4-cost forwards. Outside of that, this card's not particularly good. So like, I don't see any reason to play it. He doesn't seem good. He may see play though to search for Alexanders and for EX bursts. I don't like him. He shouldn't see play, I'm pretty sure. Next card is Mogul. So it's a 4-cost, 6 CP, 6,000 power forward. When Mogul enters the field, draw a card, and when Mogul's put from the field into break zone, draw a card. So it's very similar to the 3-cost Viking that we got from this set, except you're paying 1 CP more to get to move from a 2 CP to move from a 2,000 power forward to a 6,000 power forward. So that's actually a pretty good number to be at. So if you do consider the fact that when he immediately enters play, you draw a card, so it's kind of like a 2 CP forward at 6k. So that's not bad to begin with, but then once put from the field to break zone, you then draw another card. So effectively, this card just is pseudo free if you're able to trigger off both draws. And it is a Mogul, so there is some sort of Mogul support with that as well. And there is some synergies with that. That being said though, this card isn't unique, so you can't spam a whole bunch of them out. You can only have one on the field, but that's not too bad. So yeah, so this card is actually pretty good. He's kind of just brick wall fodder. We probably will see him in the windmill deck, simply because windmill deck wants to like get some more resources and wants to just be able to brick wall attacks, and like Mogul's just like good like meat shield fodder. So yeah, this card will see play in more sort of stolly decks, or I think potentially maybe some sort of more controlling decks that want to cycle through their decks as well. So this card will see play. Drawing cards is generally good in pretty much any game. And yeah, he's got a not a bad body to sort of work with it as well. Next card is Archer. So Archer is a 2 CP, yet another 2 CP backup. For win dull, put Archer in break zone, choose one forward opponent controls. During this turn, the next damage it deals to a forward becomes 0 instead. So this is handy in 2 ways. So basically, it can be used to prevent ability damage, but also prevent combat damage as well. And it's a pretty cheap effect, so just win dull break. You're basically negating a packet of damage. So this is particularly useful if your opponent is using a particularly big S ability. You can basically stop the S ability from dealing a whole bunch of damage, and also it's just used as a combat pump. So if you're in a situation where your forwards will trade and you don't want the trade, you can use Archer to do that. Or if you're in a situation where a pretty decent forward of yours is running into a bad attack, then all of a sudden you can use Archer. Also at the same time, you can just use it for defense as well. So this card is pretty good. I like it, and a lot of win cards have a lot of win backups were very good this set. So it really sort of gets a lot of options for win decks to decide which 2 CP backups they want to play instead of just triple Opus 1 Archer. And next card is 2-cost Raya Sena. So the card name Raya Sena and Cunning Sena you control cannot be chosen by opponent's abilities. So this is just kind of like a 2 CP backup, and basically just makes it so you guys so these particular cards can't be chosen by opponent's abilities. Something kind of to note is that Rune Sena is a 4-cost backup, so there may be the very narrow chance that your opponent is going to want to remove it in response to an effect when you're playing Cunning Sena or something. With Hecaton Care, Raya is not that it really would matter, or maybe if your opponent plays a Sephiroth to try to blow up one of your backups, this kind of prevents that backup from being dealt with. But mainly it just makes your Cunning Sena unchoosable by abilities, and that's really, really good. There's so many good forward abilities that target forwards, and this just basically shuts it down. So yeah, you won't be playing this card unless you're playing Cunning Sena, but if you do, and that whole suite actually provides you a pretty economic, decent forward package. Next, and I think that this is probably the last card of the set, is Ritz. It's a 3-cost forward at 7,000 power. Characters you control cannot be returned to owner's hands by your opponent's summons or abilities. If you control a card named Shara, Ritz gains plus 2,000 power. So, a couple of things. So, yeah, this card does prevent all your guys from being returned to your hand from your opponent's summons. So this really sort of affects 2 cards mainly. So it affects your matchup against water, and affects your matchup against wind, possibly if they're running Legendary Valor for. Outside this card is this card's effect is a little bit too niche. So this card is only really there to specifically counter water 90% of the time, and I don't ever really foresee the field being so water flooded that Ritz is just going to be that Ritz is going to see more than like more play. If you are going to be playing Ritz, it's probably to have the Ritz Shara synergy, and that's not bad at all. Pushing her up from free cost 7k to free cost 9k is pretty good while I have Shara. That being said, the Shara is really small and fragile, so I would almost never rely on having Shara to make Ritz 9k, because Ritz being a 7k, if she ever does attack and you've got Shara on the field and she's a 9,000 power forward and your opponent's blocking with an 8k, all your opponent has to do is use a 3k nuke to kill your Shara, and all of a sudden your Ritz becomes back down to 7,000 and just loses combat. So in that regard, Ritz is actually a really really fragile card to use as in combat, simply because Shara can be removed so easily. That's a lot of power from Ritz being removed straight away there. That being said, you kind of need to play Ritz in order to get maximum value out of Shara. So both these cards are very sort of fragile. I personally would be a little bit wary of playing this combo, but like the value they bring is actually pretty good. Even though like Ritz only really counts as one color in the metagame, but the fact that like a lot of monster stuff is water means that I particularly think that we'll see like a reasonable amount of water, so Ritz might not be too bad in like the metagame. That being said though, Wind has so many dudes that have so good like enter into play abilities that water just doesn't want to bounce you guys. So it's like if Wind is playing Bart, or Wind is playing like Cunning Sena, or Wind is playing Pain, water never wants to bounce any of those guys. Bouncing those guys is just bad, because like, yeah, cool, like you free up one forward so you can attack through with like 1 or 2 guys, but then those guys come back into play for free, or they have like good enter play ability. So it's just like, it's such an issue of like, if Ritz was like in Earth, then like that effect would be much more relevant in say Earth than it is for Wind. But it is what it is. The card's not terrible, but you'll mainly be playing it for its synergy of Ritz and Shara. And that's it. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely, if you have any feedback or comments, definitely post them down in the comment section below. I do my best to respond to all the comments and sort of respond to all your memes and feedbacks. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys communicating with me. If you enjoyed the video, definitely please feel free to subscribe and thumbs up the video. It does help a lot with like the YouTube analytics and all that sort of stuff. So it might not mean a lot to you, but it does help out the channel and getting more awareness and all that. So thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it, and Grand J out.